No, I'll get back to you in a minute. I got to go find you. You know, takes out that didn't work. All right, what are you doing? The awakened life to me is the awakening of the awareness that all activity of our lives, our humanness, our emotionality, our pains, our vulnerabilities are all part of the coming and goings of winter and spring and summer simultaneously. The seasons all kind of coexist in the human experience. I've coached for 15 years now, and it's almost 4,000 to 5,000 hours of coaching one-on-one with people. So I've heard the human experience a couple times. There's this feeling that it's been one single conversation 5,000 times. There's a way of perceiving the ego as a compilation. It's not an entity, not a thing. It's a compilation of perceptions of lack. And so if we begin to let go of those senses, wanting control in this moment, I let go wanting to control the outcome of this video, I just feel for a moment, poof, a little happiness. And the irony is happiness is looking out of those eyes going, hey, I'm back here. And we're up here going, no, shut up. I'm watching this YouTube video. That's what it's like.
Hi, Innately Whole Beings. I have a special guest today, David Ellzey. In this field of awakening consciousness, David is a teacher, author, consciousness coach, and a transformational performer. His work has taken him across 5 continents, working from the United Nations to events in South America and Europe, focusing on the body, the transcendent, and the human experience as one fundamental reality. David inspires the direct experience of the lightness and the unbound nature of being. A contributor of various consciousness journals, David is an author of the book, The Ocean of Now. Watching his videos on Facebook or YouTube always leaves me with a sense of groundedness and ease. What makes David interesting to me is that he's an artist and a child in heart. He spices up his teachings with creative pantomime acts and funny jokes. In this interview, we will discover what does it mean to live an awakened life and how to live it. I'm very excited to learn more about the awakened life. It's a pleasure to have you here. David, welcome.
Thank you, Viktor. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Yeah, great. So spring is here. Beauty is everywhere. I saw you sharing recently a lot of gorgeous photos over social media. So how does
they were up Sedona also. So it was my journey there. So it's always beautiful there, any season.
Yeah. So how does spring make you feel?
Well, I usually put my video right here so the sunlight comes through, and it's the best lighting in my home. And I'm looking at this very beautiful, crisp blue sky, and it's warmer. The sun is very, very warm. And so just like an animal coming out of hibernation, my body is kind of on this edge of wanting to go chase a Frisbee and catch it in my mouth or something like a dog. You know, I want to run and play. That's how I feel.
Great. I love spring too. It's like it's awakening. It's awakening, isn't it?
It's a beautiful metaphor in that way, because the awakening, the sense of awakening awareness is similar to something that was always there, just dormant, right? Covered over by twigs and seeming dead energy, but in truth, it was never the energy that permeates both the trees that appear dead and the soil underneath waiting to give birth to life again. It's all part of the unfolding of life in this infinite cycle. So that never really exists in that cycle. So when we hold on to our emotionality so often, we we think the mind wants to conclude or label something, have boxes of concepts that we refer to, but um, they fall short of the truth. Because the truth is that you pause long enough and eventually life reveals itself again. So the awakening that I perceive, the awakened life, essentially, even though you didn't ask me this question, we're jumping in right away.
Great.
The awakened life to me is the awakening of the awareness that all activity of our lives, our humanness, our emotionality, our pains, our vulnerabilities are all part of the coming and goings of winter and spring and summer simultaneously. The seasons all kind of coexist in the human experience. So to hold on to any or to have an aversion to any is what creates our suffering, as opposed to being conscious and really present to the risings and fallings. So there's this awareness, which is in the present moment, which is less touched by everything or untouched, and permeates all of it at the same time. So that's the test of awakened living, is letting ourselves be human, letting ourselves get angry, at this or that, or and yet having this part of us which is so loving that it allows for that. Like a crying baby, it's still safe to feel, but there's a part of us that doesn't get lost in it as much. That's the awakening, out of identifying with the coming and going so much as we normally do. So spring is perfect. It's a metaphor for our awakening again from dormancy to aliveness.
Yeah. I love that, and I also love that you kind of touched on that we awaken and we not stop to be human. We connect to that which we are, which means that we have thoughts. Sometimes we are angry, and underneath all of that, we have this beautiful awareness, which is like love and peace.
Right. And there's a really subtle part of this conversation, which is really essential to include, is the idea that words will never capture the absolute understanding, the absolute, because words refer to conceptual principles. And so even as I use words like underneath, or there's this and then there's also that behind it, those are spatial relationships, like there's this and then there's that. And we use them. We have to use language. But the hope is that those words point to that which is not spatial, is not based in space and time. And so that's why I often use the word, you'll hear me use the word, it's behind, but it also permeates that which is seen, or what's in front. In other words, emptiness is behind everything. It gives rise to the appearance of somethingness. But emptiness also is the pervasive substance of everything that we see. So that subtle inclusion is really important, because a lot of people, not unfortunately, it's just part of the what I would say is it falls short of a final understanding, which is that we can say our true nature, our essential nature is beneath the surface of our human nature or emotionality. But even that misses the subtlety that within our humanness is pervaded by godliness or love or essence of being. In other words, there can be nothing that appears without the source of its appearance, the source of all life. So that means the substance of everything that appears, everything, is also grounded in the essence of what all is made of.
I love that. And so you mean if I'm in a really confused state, I'm angry at someone, right? Even in that really confused, angry state, it's raised and made from that godly essence of who we are. So there is Buddha nature in that, even in that.
Right. There can be nothing else. And the concept is that The concept is that, I don't know, sometimes words for me stop. They like reach a precipice and fall over, into. If they were to be anything other than purity of being, pure isness, then where would they come from? And there can't be two sources of being. And even the concept of source is a little tricky, because then again you have this and that from which it came. And so languaging is beautiful as poetry to point. But when we break it down to pure being, it means the isness of this is the totality, is what is. And any kind of reflection verbally on it becomes secondary to the essence of what it already is. Because words are reflective. They reflect upon, or they recreate what was, or they project what might be. So they can't ever capture the isness. To me, it's similar to my hand like this. If I go like this, I actually don't experience it when it happens, because it has to travel the electric nervous system up to the brain, to the cognitive awareness of the touch. So even though it seems simultaneous, there's a delay. So if I say I'm hitting my hand, actually I'm aware of it after it actually occurred. So that's how the brain functions on a certain level. It's reflective, even if a nanosecond behind things as they're happening. So the brain can never capture the isness, simultaneous existence of pure being. And that can be emotions, that can be human experience, or so the seeking or the searching becomes how to be in a lovingness. In Buddhism, of course, they talk about compassion and kindness, and even kindness to ourselves when we're angry. See, the trick is not to try to control ourselves as much as recognize a compassion that's so pervasive, it has a healing nature to it. So that even if I'm really angry, there's a part of me that doesn't get mad at me for being angry. You see, we develop these layers about the isness. And if we don't do that, what's rising is more like waves. They can come and go quicker.
Yeah, so I would like to ask, if someone is new to this, maybe watch the video, he or she feels something resonates with it, and joins to this conversation. We're talking about something which is experiential, but what would you say to this person? What is the connecting thread?
Yeah, I'm really glad you're asking, because it is a little risky to have language about an absolute understanding or transcendence or all of those. When I get mad because my rent bounced at the bank, or I get mad because my spouse or my children are doing something, or I have something in illness, or I'm going through divorce, or someone at my work really triggers me. So how do you deal with those things in the path of awakening? For me, I then apply a principle and a technique of a series of questions and investigation into what's happening. I was trained in 1987 in the Sedona Method. Right now, I have a pretty quiet mind for the most part, and I'm grateful for that. But it wasn't always that way. When I was about 17 years old, had a explosion of rage. I was at a party, and I left the party and was driving home, and I started to have all this. I was about 18 years old in college, and I started to have all this anger and rage and vehemence and vitriol and all this emotionality come out. I was screaming expletives and hitting the passenger seat, and it was kind of out of control. I was driving, looking in the rearview mirror, trying to figure out who this was. That was what this was. It felt like a dragon. I'd never had that before. And what I realized was that I was really, really mad at myself, because at the party, it was as if I had not said anything that I really meant, and I said things that I didn't really mean, as if I was in a prison inside myself, and an intruder was in my place. And it was when I was driving home, I was so angry with myself. Like, why can't you say, I was really angry at myself. And what I realized over a 10-year period of these kinds of explosions of anger was that I had suppressed anger so much for 18 years. My family was a good family. My father was a Methodist minister, a very nice man. He was a model of generosity and kindness, very real. My parents and sisters, they were all good people, but we didn't know how to deal with energy. We didn't argue. We didn't. So I was suppressed. Very nice kid. Everybody liked David, nice boy. But I myself was not aware of the emotionality in me. I'm sharing this with you because of the question you just asked, because all of us have emotions. Even if you're living an awakened life, you still have emotions. So the question becomes, so just to finish the story, I had that experience for 10 years. And then when I was 28, I took a technique, an emotional well-being training called the Sedona Method. And it's been integral it changed my life because it gave me what I like to call a velvet screwdriver, something soft to go in and unhook what was going on, what I was afraid of. And so from then forward, I began to unhook the structure inside that gave rise to that much anger. And I still get angry. I'll still say some good expletives here and there, but they don't last very long because I'm not retelling the story and I understand where it comes from. So the technique for someone like who might be watching right now is to recognize that the emotions are coming from wanting something in this moment to be different than the way it is. Otherwise, why would we be upset? And so, right? So that awareness in that nanosecond, if you have the freedom or the ability or the strength, or you develop the skill to let go in a brief moment of wanting to change what is, as easy as it may sound, or as difficult as it may sound, and I know it's easier said than done, you have a profound beginning to shift your resistance to life. And you'll find in this little nanosecond, this little opening, this little space where you're okay or you're more at peace. And then what that does is it opens consciousness to be able to think in a new way or find a resolution. Or maybe you should leave or change the situation or accept it. You have three options: leave, change it, or accept it. And then you make those choices based on a wisdom rather than a really reactive emotionality. So for people, who are going through this process of emotions, anybody that's watching this, just notice the really strong impulse to want something to be different. If you can let go for a nanosecond, your whole body will relax. You'll take a breath again for the first time, and find yourself in the present moment, which is the place that you really need to be to decide what to do next. So that's what I would propose, Viktor. What do you think?
Yeah, actually, I'm really glad that you said that. The way I found you is that I was researching the Sedona Method, because when I started coaching, I started with emotional healing. So most of my coaching were emotional healing, pointing to the truth. Still is, and it changed. And I'm moving in a lot of like non-duality, three principles community. And a question came up to me is that these communities talk a lot about mind, consciousness, how to recognize the thoughts and not attaching to it, right? I see it as basically the same thing, a different approach. And somehow I felt, or I have the sense, the hunch that we are a holistic being. I was kind of missing that piece of emotion. I mean, it says that our emotions come from our thinking. So we have a thought and we build up certain emotion.
Yeah, that's true on one angle. That's how it can happen, but it can also happen from the animalistic standpoint, the mind-body created structure of response to the world, which isn't always mental first. In other words, you can see someone who looks like your father, who might have abused you, and your body system will have a response initially prior to you even knowing what you're responding to, prior to a cognitive awareness. And so the body has memory or programmed responses. So sometimes it's sensation first, and then the story comes after.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's sensation without thinking.
Yeah, it's
Sometimes
the psychosomatic memory, like our body remembers these things and kind of we got triggered, right?
exactly. And that's why to me, love sometimes, self-love is the most powerful balm, 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 like a salve, like a moisturizer for the soul. Love is love because I've coached for 15 years now, and it's almost 4,000 to 5,000 hours of coaching one-on-one with people. So I've heard the human experience a couple of times, right? And there's this feeling that it's been one single conversation 5,000 times. That's what it feels like. Because we have our emotions, we have our angers, our resentments, our confusion at why we were abused. Our little innocence doesn't understand why it was treated badly. So what we do then is we create the coping mechanism of logic by saying, okay, I get it. I guess I deserve that. I understand. And then for the rest of our adult life, we have this perception. But we did it in order to make sense of what doesn't make sense when people are living in their emotions and treating children a certain way. So then we live with this psychosomatic, this mixture of psychology about ourselves and the world, with the body response of fear, holding ourselves back, staying contracted whenever we step in front of a group of people, even though we'd love to feel free, we feel afraid because the body was always afraid of the unknown because of the unknown atmosphere, the inconsistency of treatment. So what we end up having to do is really go slow and really stop, not even go slow, stop and recognize the emotions that are here from history need to be loved so deeply that they find what they didn't have then, and they find that the world is safe because I am now their world. Right? I'm the spaciousness, I'm the hearth, the little fireplace in the heart that they can come into and get warm from the cold of being out in the world alone and scared. And they come home inside, and when they return home inside, they soften. And therefore we soften, metaphorically, we feel the whole body system recalibrating because we become the unconditioned presence that we're seeking everywhere else. We don't become it, we recognize our own nature as it, welcoming home our humanness, and in the welcoming home, there's a return and a sense of love. And oftentimes when I deal with clients on this level, there's tears because they haven't welcomed themselves home, the judgment of themselves. So it's very powerful. And I want to say this just to finish this little portion. Oftentimes I have tears, really often, when I talk about truth. I'm touched even now because it's like the self getting to be with itself for a second. It's like returning and having a hug. When you crave something your entire life and finally, but because it's itself returning to itself, for me, whenever truth is known on a deep level with someone I'm talking with or when I'm talking, there's tears that come. It's like tears of beauty. And what I want to say about it was I was in India because I wondered what they were most of my life. I was in India. I was walking under the Indian skies and with a teacher, with a guy that was very tall, maybe in his 70s, an Indian gentleman who had been a student of Ramana Maharshi. And I don't know, this gentleman was older now. And I asked him, I said, so can you tell me what these tears are when I get close to truth? And he said, oh, David, that is not a problem. He said, those are devotional watering of the soil of the heart. Right? The tears of when we're near truth of the devotional watering of the soil of the heart. Wow. That stayed with me my whole life, right? And will until I die, these tears of truth, you know?
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. It's so you are saying that when we totally welcome ourselves, and
The parts of ourselves that we've been denying.
yes.
Yeah.
So it's like we've been separated, like fragmented. We denied certain parts of ourselves, and when we welcome those back, we experience the wholeness of our being, which is everything. Do I get you right?
Yeah, and when you say everything, you mean everything in our direct experience, or do you mean all of existence?
I mean everything, what we experience as we experience it. It's kind of deeper. Again, I'm struggling putting it into words.
Yeah.
Because there is just a kind of a feeling, a remembering.
Yeah. Well, to respond, the answer is yes. When we, it's kind of the way I like to explain this process of gaining clarity about who we are is that in the beginning of this self, and the beginning can be anywhere. You can be 6 years old and begin this journey, but I was started around 14 consciously. But in the beginning of conscious exploration, the font of our experience, if we're going to talk in terms of space and time, the current experience of living is here. We have our angers and our fears, and we have all these facades that we see the world through. Right? My dad abused me, so that's here. The world's not safe. I always wanted more money because that would mean I'm of more value. That's right here. So we have all these filters. Now, pure awareness, which is unconditioned, is here looking through and being diminished in its experience of the world, not its source. So in the beginning, that's where we experience our life, is in these filters. And peace, or these glimpses of a sunset, or making love, or a dog or a pet, or a little baby looking at you, makes this thing come forward that permeates past all these filters for a moment, and we see the world through that, free of filters. And that's our true nature. And for a moment, we get this glimpse of freedom. And then the filters come back, and this goes back here. So that's how it is in the beginning. And the more you do this work or meditate or do the Sedona Method or any process, mindful meditation or Vipassana or whatever you do, that brings you closer to this experience so that it comes more often forward, what ends up happening is this seeming solid facade of reality, what the world is and why it is and what I am, all this belief structure begins to get weaker and begins to come, watch, this is what happens, begins to get weaker, and this begins to be more prominent. So I see more with this may come like this. Before it was like this. And then it starts to come like this. You know, you begin to notice, oh, that's my old program about the world isn't safe. All right, or all men are unsafe or unworthy or untrustworthy, or all women are this or that. So that's this. It comes in, but the more you're aware or awakening, you begin to notice it when it goes. You go, oh, that's interesting. Oh, that was hello. Oh, I got that. Oh, okay. All right. You know, it just begins to be a little lighter. And then for a while, this begins to be more clear and it begins to be back here. So when it comes forward, it's like so obvious. Like, oh, Lord, I thought I took care of that, you know. And then you process it, you love it, you let go, you do whatever techniques you can. And then it goes, so pretty soon the prominent experiences the spatial, open sense of being, and this becomes the visitor. Emotionality is a visitor, as opposed to emotionality first, and peace is a visitor. And pretty soon, peace or clarity of thinking or love is more prominent. And the emotionality or the constricted way of feeling comes in less and less. I don't know what that was a response to you in questions, but
I don't know either. I loved it. I loved it as you were talking about this human experience. It absolutely makes sense to me. I remember when I had like a awakening, more kind of awakening period. First, I thought that my awareness is here. I gave a space to it, and I'm watching things from up here. And at some point, through meditation, self-inquiry, I was really troubled at that time, fighting with depression, had a lot of judgment about myself and my environment, which was a judgment about myself eventually. And I realized that all of those just concepts, like who am I, my name, who I should be, the success, the $1 million, the car, the fame, the not good enough job or marriage or not good enough me, all just concepts. So I kind of, for a while, I saw that my mind works in a way that it names things. It puts labels on things. It makes concepts and stories about things. And I were able to just see them as they are, not pushing them away, not doing anything with them, just see things for, and that kind of emptiness appeared where things just there. And the interesting thing was that there were a deep sense of peace and love. It's like not the peace and love what one feels out of something. It's just when everything cleared out, nothing less left, just peace and love. And so the kind of link what I'm trying to elicit and still I don't know if I'm missing. Maybe this is another question what not necessarily needs to be answered, but I'm going to try it anyway.
Yeah.
Is that the way I'm explaining it to my clients, and I was hearing from others as well, is from the approach that we have our psyche, which works with names, concepts, stories. We have stories about ourselves, what happened during the day, what will make us happy, and what makes us unhappy. So that's how just thinking the monkey mind works. That's how it works. Jumps into the future, the past cannot be in the moment. Future, past, and stories and concepts. Future and past is just a concept as well. So the way to find our innately whole being is to come to our senses, is to see our thinking for what they are, just thoughts. And then we can allow our feelings as well, our thinking and our feeling to happen, and we won't get dragged by them. So that's a way of experiencing freedom. Now, when I'm watching teachers about this in non-duality, it seems like that I can watch them all day and I can learn. But this is something that cannot be learned. It seems kind of heady to like work with thinking or come back to our body. But so do you get what I mean? We like this kind of approach feels like we put our attention to our thinking. And the Sedona Method and what you're talking about and what I love is that you bring the attention to the compassion, to the heart. And it brings to the same point.
Yeah, it does. It does bring it to the same point. Because...
And fascinates me. And what's that?
Hey, what is that? I don't know. Let's go have lunch.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, it's beautiful. Where I would go with what you're saying is that what you're talking about is the seeming journey back to self, right? The seeming journey from placing our attention on conceptual reality or non-reality, really illusory reality, back to presence itself, awakened awareness that's awake to the comings and goings. What I like about that is that you're addressing what isn't usually addressed. For instance, Lester Levinson, who created the Sedona Method, said, you can never become what you are. You can only let go of what you're not. That's one, right? So that's A. But eventually, he also said that eventually you have to release the one who's doing the releasing. And that's what I feel like you're pointing towards and what I'm pointing towards. That it's not that I am just compassionate with the process of letting go requires that there be some steps. Number one, I acknowledge. You have to allow and welcome something. Otherwise, you're going to stay in the unconscious repetition and whirlwind of it. So I have to at some point acknowledge, yes, I feel an emotion. Yes, I'm angry. Yes, I resent. Yes, I'm really hurting. Yes, I'm confused. Yes, I'm stuck. Then, in the allowance of it, it seems like I'm doing it, but eventually what you're experiencing is the reality that only consciousness can be a welcoming presence. Another object can't welcome an object. It's not big enough. The only thing that can really welcome is the consciousness in which all things arise. So when I say I allow myself to be, it seems like I'm saying it, but by doing it, I'm tricking myself into the experience of being consciousness, being compassion, being kindness, not just me being kind. So the reason that learning, I hope I'm not being confusing, but the parallel to what your question is about learning to me is that I can attempt to learn, but eventually the one who supposedly needs to learn something, he has to be let go of. So we can try to give each other all the knowledge in the world, but the perception that I need knowledge to be more whole is another conceptual, right? Another concept. Because if we really seek, if we really look right now, other than awareness, if a viewer is looking at their screen right now and seeing you and I, other than the awareness of the screen, if you don't go into memory to recreate a you that's watching something on screen, or you don't go into the future, or you don't focus on the physiology, is there actually a locatable you other than just awareness itself? If I said, I'm in the room with you right now, I'd like you to point to awareness. Right? Awareness is undeniably here, but it's not a locatable shape or form. A lot of people would say, well, it's right here. That's a good start, but it's a little problematic because if I told a surgeon to go in there and find awareness, it might be a little messy, right? Awareness is not a tangible, even nameable reality. It's the unnameable, unwordable, Yahweh. Before they would put, Hebrews wouldn't even write the word Yahweh because it would be a siphoning down or a sense of limiting that which is unlimited. So we have to actually disappear. We don't have to disappear. We have to recognize that I have an identity of a me that's wanting to get knowledge in order to become more me, right? And once that's diminished or dismantled, then you're freer. So learning can be fine. It's helpful. You do it if you feel pulled. But at some point, you'll have to question the one who's trying to learn.
Yeah. What I really love is that you saying the great disappearance is, if I want to say like a really, really grounded example from my life is when I'm saying on purpose because I'm still falling back from time to time as we were discussing. So when I'm believing that I need this, I need to achieve this. I need to get my business to this level, or this amount of money, or or whatever, right? Or I need to achieve a certain spiritual whatever, like, level. I'm missing the whole point. So, and the ego doesn't like this. So the ego doesn't like that actually I'm already good. The ego doesn't like that there is no answer, there is no endpoint, there is no arrival other than letting that go, and you see that you've been always arrived. Mm-hmm. So it's like, I grew up in this self-development hustle mindset of working 16 hours or 20, whatever, and the ego doesn't like that there is no end point.
Right. Yeah. And the ego itself, if we really investigate that concept, is a house of cards too. I mean, again, to locate the ego is a little problematic. It's a conceptual reality too, right? Because other than pure awareness in this moment, aware of this voice and the sound and movement, even the egoic, the concept of me as an ego, it's a valuable tool. So don't get me wrong. It's a valuable tool in the road to awakening, but it has to be questioned also. Finally, one of the ways that we talk about the egoic, for me, the way of talking about the ego that really works well is this mixture of the Sedona Method and a Buddhist tradition. That in the Sedona Method, there's a way of perceiving the ego as a compilation. It's not an entity, not a thing. It's a compilation of perceptions of lack. So, and lack of security, lack of love, lack of control around the universe, lack of being connected to other people. And so that lack creates a perception of someone who lacks those things. But the sense of lack when it rises doesn't belong to anybody. It's a memory of a sense. And so if we begin to let go of those senses, wanting control in this moment, I let go wanting to control the outcome of this video, I just feel for a moment, a little happiness. It's like it's instantaneous because it's already here. It's going like this. Hey, what's up? Just look down here, everybody. We're going, yeah. No, I'm busy. I got to change everything to get happy. And happiness is going, hey, what are you doing? I'm right here. It's like doing this whole thing, What the frick are you doing? I'm right here. I'm all yours, man. I've been here since you were born, We're up here going, no. I'll get back to you in a minute. I got to go find you. Takes out that didn't work. All right. What are you doing? It's like forever calling out, That's what it's like. And we're going, yeah. No. Somebody once told me that if I go to this teacher, if I read this book, or I watch this TV show, or this YouTube video, or, I'll find happiness. And the irony is happiness is looking out of those eyes going, hey, I'm back here. And we're up here going, no, shut up. I'm watching this YouTube video. That's what it's like. We put it in Brooklynese. That's what we're talking about. Why would you go away from the family to find family? There's cooking here. This is what I'm talking about. You want a little pasta? Come home, for heaven's sake. No, I got to go out and find pasta, It's like...
I'm laughing hard. I was trying not to be loud. Oh, yeah.
If it wasn't so hard on us, it would be laughable. It's laughable to see it. But while we're in it, it's like, no, I got to work hard at this, Guys back there going, yeah, well, I don't know what you're doing, but we'll be here when you get back, Yeah. So, it's our so the ego is this idea that becomes a person going like this. No, I got to go find it. I got to go find it. And the whole body behind here is happiness, you know. So the egoic sense is this impulse to go find something that we already are. So the egoic sense comes from a sense of lack. So in the Sedona Method, why I so freaking adore the Sedona Method is because there's this moment when you realize I'm wanting love from this person. I don't care why. Well, psychology and history, sometimes it's useful, but in this moment, there's a wanting of approval or love. If I actually let that rest and I put down the little suitcase, I walk around going, want approval. You know, if I put it down for a sec, I just love. I love you. You know, that's just, I'm fine. And my insides rest a little bit more. So the Sedona Method, 3 basic senses of lack that you let go of and your life changes are wanting approval. So, you know, we have a history, want to defend and protect it. Why I need approval. I never got it. Let me tell you about the scars I have. Those are the stories that you refer to, right?
Yes.
So we got concepts and ideas and stories and memories. So we let down the story. We put it down. We say, I don't need approval in this moment. I'm actually fine. Boom, I feel a little better. Let go wanting to control the world around us.
Yeah.
Just for a nanosecond. And then the irony is then you have more control. Because you're strong. You're not coming from neediness. And then the last is wanting security or safety. Because in this moment, there's no threat unless I go into mind or memory or future. And then I relax and I can take care of business. I can create a different business with more intelligence. So all that happens by letting go of the sense of lack. So that's the Sedona Method base. And then in Buddhism, suffering comes from desire, from wanting. So put that down.
Yeah.
It's just a lot quieter here. Quieter, but also free, silly, playful, safe, you know, loving. I love you. I barely know you, Viktor. You're all right. You can come over for dinner.
So, David, I really love that. And I have a question which is really dear to my heart, and I know that probably to many people in the audience is that, is there such a thing as self-development without a self? Like, do we lose motivation to improve if we are content?
If you're content, you don't need to improve. Now we're talking about worldly things. If you need to improve a skill to get a job, you do that. You know, physiologically or mentally, you can improve to accomplish things in the world. But we're talking about a fundamental sense of self. And the fundamental sense of self as at rest, ironically gives rise to more vitality. It's an irony, it's paradoxical. You know, we have this idea that if I'm more at peace and more content, I'll be like this, you know, forever. I'll get nothing done. My experience is it's the opposite. I mean, on a personal level, my coaching practice has just flourished. It's just flourished because I settle into this sense of not needing approval. And the groundedness of that is what people crave. People crave the solidity of somebody who's quiet and present and not conditioned. And so as a coach, I listen well, but also my wisdom feels like it's deepened. So I'm actually improving my work because of my contented soul, my restfulness. So we really are talking about 2 different levels, right? You know, we're talking about the worldly level.
Yeah.
Improve, go improve. But you're probably going to be hindered to improve things you need to improve if you have the sense of lack inside. I'm not good enough, I'll never make it. That won't help you learn or improve.
Yeah.
You let those go, and then you have more energy and the vitality to do the things you're moved to do.
Yeah. So what I'm thinking, if a guy comes to me, or a guy comes to you, who is like, full of ambition, drive, about to build his business, and you see that there is some like confusion, or there is this kind of thing up in their head of wanting to go out and do stuff. And you start to introduce them to the truth that happiness, fulfillment already within, and it can be accessed. Now, the concern, what I realized, one of the first one, is that they start to fear that if they fulfilled, none of those things will come true.
Yeah, I'm really happy you're asking, because it's this idea. I get really happy about this. I get kind of jazzed, because the idea of awakening or enlightenment or any of those big words is the idea that you will change. And it's really important, because people ask me this question. We are uniquely expressed. The universe, infinity, is uniquely expressing as me, different than you. I'm not deciding I'm going to be different than you and wear a blue shirt instead of your t-shirt. I didn't decide. I didn't even know what you were going to wear. I wore what was my impulse to wear. It was a unique expression of infinite impulse. We are made up of genetics, genetic history, we're genes, lineage of genetic history. We have family surroundings and environment and atmosphere and experiences. And then we have the soul and the heart and the unspoken. We're this compilation of elements to create this thing called David and Viktor. Within that, we get to check and see, am I being driven by my 7-year-old life experience? That I'm behaving from that. So I really don't want that as my personality. So I'll let some of that go, or love it, to allow it to relax. But the personality, what I call the storefront, it's like we all have a storefront that's built. We can't change that. My rhythm of talk is different than yours. My ability to play Johnny Cappuccino, what are you doing? That's built in. I actually didn't practice. He just came out one day. But that's part of my storefront. And you have yours, and your friends have theirs. And President Trump has his, right? And the person, the homeless, has his. There's a part of the personality traits that have been built. Awakening is recognizing what's driving that car that's already built. Because in the awakening, you can recognize if that car is being driven by the unconscious and subconscious history of our experience, and therefore seeking approval, love, control, security, oneness. Is that driving this thing that's built? Or is there an awakening to, I am an unlimited presence as David? That makes David behave differently, because I'm not afraid of you, because I feel connected to you. That's a different behavior than if David was driven by fear because someone looked like you who robbed me when I was 8 and beat me up. David would be driven by either that fear or a deeper understanding of self. So the facade, the storefront, doesn't change a whole lot. It'll probably get kinder because it's not afraid of everybody. There's some characteristics that are traditionally more common, but you don't disappear. So the things you like I like basketball. I'll go to my gym and shoot basketball for hours if I could. I just shoot. It's like Zen. Okay, a little adjustment here, a little adjustment there. That didn't work. Didn't use my left leg. I'll just, for hours, I love it because it's a ball and a basket. That's what some kids like, That's since Mom tells me I was throwing rocks at trying to hit specific things when I was, before I came out of the womb. I don't know. It was just, it's in me. It's built. And you have things in you. You don't necessarily give up these things because they're your unique expression of life. As Deepak Chopra says, the impulse to to be creative or to be the universe, is to be alive, is the ecstatic evolutionary impulse of the universe. We can't stop that. And it wants to express as you, or as anybody that's watching in the screen right now. It's unique. What you get to do on an awakened level is seek to see if you've been living unconsciously as this person, or if there can be an awakening to the subconscious that's been driving you that you don't need, that's actually been causing harm or a misalignment with love, and let that go or work through it or love it. So the personality trait doesn't disappear. If you're driven to be successful in business, most likely there'll be some kind of impulse that loves that, but maybe you'll do it from love of it rather than fear driving it. That was a really long answer to say, you'll find out if you're still driven to do the same things, but quite often they don't change. It's just that impulse behind them quiets down from fear to something else.
Yeah, my experience with that it will become like as a child plays. It will become for the joy of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like when we were a child, we had this urge to pick up a stick, and that became a gun, and we were fighting with it. And that's the kind of feeling how we're gonna do stuff and achieve stuff. You just won't have that kind of struggle or lack. Instead, the enjoyment of doing it.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I'm saying. It moves from having a black hole that you're trying to get the world to fill up to an overflow of the joy. It's the difference between trying to fill and overflow of being.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. And we are closing to the end of the interview, which is a shame because I so love it and could continue it probably for hours. So I have a couple of questions to wrap up. Like, I know this is again could be a long answer. We're gonna try to make it well packed. So, what would you like to see in the world?
What brings me the greatest joy is watching the light bulb come on behind the eyes, that people are more than what they think they are. When they awaken to their presence being unbound, that always touches my heart. So I would like to see that happen for as many people as possible. And that would be my greatest joy, to awaken to our unbound nature and the love that is our deepest essential being. And that would be what I would hope.
Great. And I have a quote from your book, The Ocean of Now. The quote I chose is, "Who you are is prior to knowledge. You are the boundlessness in which knowledge comes and goes. Simultaneously, okay, this is a hard word to me. Simultaneously, you are the essence of all knowledge and all of life." So the reason I chose this is because actually because my brother asked or asked me a question, or not a question, but pointed to me a wisdom, and this is seemed to connect to that, is that when you think you don't, yeah, when you think you don't know, when you know you don't think. And so we are that knowledge, right? What we see.
Yeah. So the last part of the phrase is that, what is the last part of my sentence? Can you remind me of what I
Yes.
said?
Okay, but don't laugh at me on a.
No, you don't have to say
Simultaneously,
anything.
you are the
It's
essence of all knowledge and all of life. You are the
Right.
essence of all knowledge and all of life.
Yeah. So this answers your question that the essence of knowledge is what you already are. So you can try to get knowledge, but ultimately, when you know what you are, the boundless presence and awakened awareness in this moment, you need less knowledge because you already know what you are. We're trying to get knowledge in order to discover what we are. So as we discover in this moment that we aren't our thinking, we aren't concepts, we aren't ideas, we're the awareness that's here, that's aware of all of that, then we need less thinking, we need less knowledge. Thinking may still happen, but it doesn't present a problem anymore, because if you think about how big is something finite compared to the infinite? How
So,
big is
so knowing is being, and being is knowing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's not a knowing of a something. It's a knowing with a period at the end of the sentence.
Okay. You are the essence of all knowledge and all life, all of life.
Right.
Okay. So, what are you up to? Are there anything what you would like to share? Anything what is new to you as a coach, as a speaker, as an author?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a few things. I am going to be compiling a book, I hope, this year, which is going to be a compilation of a lot of writings that I've done over the last number of years. And I hope it's a short book um, with some really wonderful writings. I have an editor friend of mine right now who's doing the work on it. So I hope for people to keep their eyes out for that. I am really enjoying speaking at companies right now, at organizations, around the concept of emotional intelligence, meaning wisdom. The word wisdom is a Greek word. It comes from Wisa, W-I-S-A, which means to see. So wisdom really means the ability to see. And so emotional intelligence, awareness of emotions and the ability to process them, gives you the ability to see clearly. And then mindfulness is included in the sense of the awareness of emotionality. And so when we let go of wanting, presence, awareness, mindfulness is all a result of that. So I'm speaking at events right now in organizations called Wisdom, Emotional Intelligence, and Mindfulness, because it welcomes the body, emotions, the transcendent, as our innate wholeness, so to speak. And so in the business world or in leadership, people often segment those things. But a really good leader, one of the quotes that I enjoy the most is that the greatest leader is one that most people don't know exists. Meaning they're in the background and they're facilitating, but when people achieve things, they feel like it's theirs. And so in a way, beingness or awareness is the greatest leader. We barely know it's there, and yet it's actually facilitating all of our being, all of our life. So I'm enjoying being in companies and organizations like that. And I have more, on my website, on the events page, I'll have other courses coming up this year. And that's a good place to stay tuned. YouTube, my videos on there are there's many of them to see. So my YouTube channel has that. I'm on Twitter and Facebook. So, and I have a Facebook Live every Friday morning at 9 a.m. Central, where I talk about these things. So people can come and meet me
Is
there.
that the Awakened Life?
Yeah.
The title? Yeah, great.
Awakened Life Live.
Live. Live. Great.
Yeah.
Thank you. I enjoyed, had a great time. We just discovered, remembered, saw a lot of wisdom and laughed. Thank you, David, for being here with me and with us. And guys, if you want to reach out to David, I'm sure that he's happy to answer
Sure, I'd be happy to. And thank you, Viktor, too, for doing these interviews so the world can exponentially learn more and more about truth. So I bow to you as well. Thanks. It's been very enjoyable.
Thanks. Great. See you guys. Bye bye.